The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Earnestly podcast coming to you on late October 4th, 2022. How you guys doing? I want to apologize to you guys for putting out the solo pod a little later than I usually will. I've been, as you guys notice, I'll be pretty much have a schedule now for this podcast, especially with the solo stuff. I put it out on Tuesday mornings and then sometimes Thursday mornings as well, too, depending on, whether I can record that morning or not. But today, for some reason, I didn't get out in time. And there's a couple things we'll be doing on the feed going forward. I know we made a lot of changes, through the feed in the last couple months and stuff. And with scheduling issues and stuff, too, coming up and whatnot with other things, we're going to try some new ideas with schedules and stuff. Let me just say right now that October is going to be a really booked month for podcasts. And I do have a semi-limited schedule of podcasting because, like I said, I can do it. Again, one of the things that we want to work on here, of course, is balance. But I do have commitments also outside the show I have as well, too. Whether it's other podcasts I do, whether it's, family stuff and things of that nature. But October's going to be a busy month because we have, obviously, football is already in full motion, both college and pros. Basketball, as you know, around the corner. We just did a big Over-Unders podcast last week with the degenerate himself, Zach, and the professor, Chris Cosmetic, last week. Also, you guys know I love politics. I'm not talking about politics. This is an election season for the midterms, and that's coming around the corner. We have a couple of podcasts we're going to be doing this month dedicated to the midterms and just kind of the environment of what's going on now with that, as we're really a month away from the midterms, actually. So that's another thing we're going to be getting into. So there's a lot of things going on. I'm trying to figure out some different new ideas and stuff with the podcast. But what I've noticed, though, is that we've kind of built a little bit of a schedule now where we do the show every Tuesday and every Thursday. Now, you may have noticed today, for example, we did a student game report today. You may have noticed on the feed today that episode was on its own. Normally it's on the Football Awesome episode we do every Wednesday. But for some reason, today, this week we decided to put it on its own because number one, that episode ran really long for starters. Let's start there. That episode ran really long. And I've been thinking about actually already taking some of those segments, the student game report, my Power Rankings with Mike, the Easy versus Degenerate with Zach, and kind of either blending in, moving to another day, or blending it into the solo episodes as a segment. Something more efficient. Trying to clean up the feed a little bit and trying to kind of give it where it needs to be. Like I said, we're going to work on some of these things and come we can see how it works out going forward with the schedule going forward. Because obviously this goes against my schedule as well too with work and everything else, but. We're trying new things here on Speaking Podcast, and like I said, you may have also noticed too, also on the podcast that kind of a new logo, a new branding logo on the center of the podcast picture. What I call that, the front cover. That was designed, of course, by my wife Lauren. Shout out to her; she did a fantastic job with that. I'm really proud. She's like I said, I rely on her a lot when it comes to the show in terms of behind the scenes. She does a lot more than you realize. First of all, the name of the show, she created that. She named the show years ago, and the blog. She has her hand. She has done a lot with this show in terms of helping with ideas. Because sometimes you can get in your own little way. When you do the show, as long as I have, you have a certain formula, and it's good to have another voice out there that's especially one you can trust. And I mean, who else can you trust other than your spouse? And she's someone that's it's always been part of my vision and part of the why we do what we do here, especially. And I can't say nothing but great things about her for her help and her hard work, really, on helping to move this show along for as long as we're doing it. I mean, we're 11 years in, man. We're 11 years into this podcast, and we ain't stopping. Like, we've been doing this a long time, and I'm enjoying every minute of it. Obviously, some bumps on the road and some alterations here and there, and ideas come in, and but at the same time, I'm really, really, really proud of everything we've been doing. So, again, shout out to my wife Lauren for being supportive, of course, and I love you very much, of course, and thank you for everything you've done for the show and everything you do in general as a mom and as a wife. I appreciate it. So this episode is called "There Isn't Any Great, but There's a Whole Lot of Good." And the reason why this episode is called that is because we're now 4 weeks into the NFL season. And one thing is clear, as I'm looking at the scope of the season. There really aren't any great teams right now in the league. But what I can say is that there are a lot of really good teams. And actually, there's a lot of good teams in general. Like, there's a lot of teams that are better than we thought they were going to be. There are teams that we thought would be terrible this year. That better we thought. Like, look, the parity in this league right now is completely amazing. Like, it's really fascinating to see the parity in this league right now come to, just what it is. And the parity is not just like from 1 to like 12 or 1 through 15 or 16. You're seeing parity from 1 through 32. Like, even the worst teams in the league, even the teams that we thought would be bad coming the year. We all predicted that Houston, Seattle, teams like that, Atlanta be bad. And Atlanta's 2-2, and right now this week with a win this week against Tampa Bay, could be the leader in the division in the NFC South. I mentioned Seattle. They're 2-2. I don't know how they're doing it, but they're 2-2 right now. I don't think they're really still a great team, but they're 2-2 so far. So we got to respect that. The Houston Texans are 0-3-1, but they've been competitive in all of their games. Every team in this league, maybe not maybe the Washington Commanders may be the only one that's probably going the wrong direction. Maybe the Colts too, but even the Colts beat the Chiefs last week. One thing is clear that there's definitely any given Sunday attitude right now to the league right now for all these teams, and that's what's really fascinating about this year. Now, granted, look, we're 4 weeks in. Look, I'm a Giants fan. We're 3-1. I don't think they're a great team. I think they're 3-1 largely because of great coaching and Saquon Barkley, who I think right now is the MVP of the league right now. You may disagree with me, that's okay. But I think Saquon Barkley is the MVP of the league. I think Brian Daboll right now is probably coach of the year, in my opinion. As you've heard me argue that on the Student Game Report that came out earlier today. So but the point is, though, is the parity is very relevant. Now, look, teams might come back to earth, or teams might get back to where they need to be by week 10, week 11. But right now, 4 weeks in, it has been an impressive year. I'm really impressed with how things have shaked out so far this year. Like I said, no great teams right now. Although I think Buffalo, Philadelphia, and Kansas City, like there's definitely a tier. Like I'll go tier 1 is KC, Buffalo, and KC, Buffalo, in Philadelphia, of course, who's unbeaten still. I think tier 2 can go 8, 9, 10 teams deep. Packers, Vikings, Ravens, Dolphins, Bengals, Jaguars, you name it. Those teams could be, there's a good tier 2, that big tier 2. Even tier 3 is weird. Cardinals and, teams of that nature. Cardinals, Titans, teams that are, not I'm necessarily high on, but they're actually still in the mix. Like I said, this has been a strange year. And it's been a fun year, too. And I like it. I love the unpredictability right now of this season so far. Now, again, I think at some point we get to, late October, early November, things start to shake out the way it should be. And then, teams that are bad will probably still be bad. But for the time being, 4 weeks in, this has been a fascinating year. I'm enjoying the season, and we'll see how things shake out in the weeks to come. Looking forward to it. Speaking of staying in the NFL, of course, Tua Tagovailoa ruled out for Week 5 against the New York Jets this week. Obviously, we know what happened to Tua, with the concussion protocols and all that. I don't really want to get too much into this anymore, honestly. We've heard a bunch of the media getting all up in arms about it, and then obviously here the independent doctor who treated Tua last week after the game against the Bills was when he suffered the concussion allegedly, which he was allegedly fired for making some errors on his workup, his checkup, what to call it. But he'll probably out a couple weeks, obviously. Like I said, the media got a little too out of shape a little bit to some degree. I get it why they did it. Just because but my thing is my point was at the time was like let the information come out first before start spewing out fire this guy, fire that guy. Stephen A. Smith, who I love very much at ESPN, but he was going crazy on Friday. Now obviously things are starting to come out now, and we're starting to see some of the some of the things that are coming out now, and who's responsible, whatnot. Like I said, my opinion, Tua probably shouldn't have been out there. My thing was he was cleared by an independent doctor. Now we can dive more into details about how the protocols are done. Obviously, I don't know about the protocols, but what we knew was that he was cleared by independent doctor to come to play, and Tua was going to play, and Tua played. So that's all we know. But like I said, it'll be fascinating to see how the NFL continues to adjust their concussion protocol, because again, and I'm glad the players in the league, or should I say, foreign players in the league, are speaking out on ESPN on platforms now, because it's better if they hear from them who actually have skin in the game, who actually had time in the league, to get more perspective about what goes through a player's mind. For example, if a player wants to go out there and play and not let his team down, and will do what it takes to win a game, and despite his health or what could be at risk for him, it's good to hear like Dominique Foxworth and Marcus Spears on ESPN speak up and talk about these things. LaShawn McCoy on Fox Sports 1, guys who have skin in the game, who's probably suffered concussions in the past. Rather hear their perspective on it and what should be done, as opposed to talking heads like Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless and whatnot. So, if you guys didn't know, my NFL Week 5 top 10 bottom 5 rankings are out. They'll be on social media also today as well too. My bottom 5 first, just to get you guys jacked up for this as I bring it up right now. I'm stalling here, bringing up my bottom 5. My 28-32, my bottom 5: Chicago Bears, Seattle Seahawks, Carolina Panthers, Washington Commanders 31, and 32 is Houston Texans. I actually considered putting the Commanders on the bottom of the list. I really did consider that, because they are probably the team that's trending the very wrong way. They're literally a game from we own 4. That Jaguars game, they almost lost that game. Texans, like I said, they've been tough. They've been frisky, all this, but again, they don't have a win. They don't have a win. And at some point, 4 weeks in, if you don't have a win, I mean, at some point, we have to penalize you to some degree. The Panthers also going the wrong way. Like I said, you heard the shooting report. I think hot seat time for Matt Rule, definitely probably the hottest seat in the league right now. Seahawks at 29 with I guess, shocking win in Detroit to some degree, the way they won. Not a big believer in Seattle still. We'll see if they can continue to win, if they win some games going forward, but I'm not a fan of Seattle, and what overall I think they'll come to earth at some point, I guess. But I'll give credit is due. Geno Smith, 77% passing rating right now. Not a passing rating, 77% completion percentage are now in the league. Tops in the league right now. The Bears 28, of course, 2-2 Bears. Offense worst in the league by far, not even close. My top 10-1. You have the Niners at 10. Bengals at 9, Ravens 8, 7 to Rams, 6 to Bucks, 5 to Dolphins, 4 to Packers, 3 to Chiefs, 2 to Eagles, 1 to Bills. I was on the Huddle Up podcast earlier tonight, and there was a lot of pushback on the Dolphins being as high as they are. I get it, no Tua, especially too. That kind of makes any sense. I get that. Also pushback on the Niners, why they should be why they're on the list, for example. The reason Niners on the list for me is this. To me, it comes to trust, and I think at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what record they are. Once the Niners get in the playoffs, they are going to be the most dangerous team in the NFC, just like they were last year. And they're Minnesota Super Bowl last year. I trust the Niners more than most teams in the NFC, not named Tampa, and maybe the Rams, I guess. We'll see how the Rams play out. Rams are struggling. They don't look like the same team as last year. Not really impressed with them. Packers seem kind of high, I guess, really. But again, this is my whole thing. There's tier 1, Bills, Eagles, Chiefs. And then it's like tier 2 is like literally 8, 9, 10 teams deep. Like the Jaguars could be in the top 10. The Chargers could hypothetically, but they're not because of injuries. That's why I didn't put them in there. So, like I said, there's a lot of football you play. And again, I don't think we as football fans right now are really appreciating the parity we have right now in the league. It's real. It's a real thing right now, and it's fantastic. And it's making football enjoyable. Even the bad teams are fun to watch now. So, but like I said, I think in the weeks to come, we'll get some course corrections and all that. That will come up at some point. We'll get that, I'm sure, at some point. But yeah, that's my rankings right now for this week, for week 5. My top 10, bottom 5. We'll get Mikey B on the podcast the next day or two to do his top 10 and bottom 5, and we'll compare and whatnot. All right, so what else we got on the list here to talk about here? We have, sorry, I'm stalling here as I find my, there it is. Okay, some baseball talk. My New York Mets melting down Atlanta. As of this recording, the Braves have now officially clinched the NL East. They beat the Marlins tonight. The Mets won 2 games today against the Nationals, but very disappointing in the way that fell apart for the Mets this past weekend, because it really put me in a depressive state, to be honest, as a Met fan. Not surprised, though, because I'm a Met fan. I've been a Met fan as long as I have. So to be a Met fan is to be pessimistic, as I said. all year long, I was impressed with this team. Saying that this is a really good team, enjoying the ride, but don't get overconfident. I had my friend Cliff Connors on the podcast back in August, told him the same thing. Don't get overconfident because the Mets, we know the history. They have a tendency to let us down. Look, they're in the playoffs, which is fantastic. They're in the playoffs. But I really wanted the NL East championship because obviously by getting an NL East championship, they could have gotten the bye as well too. Which obviously with their pitching staff, which is a great pitching staff, but also a vulnerable one because of injuries, they need that. They need that rest. And the worst part of what I was so disappointed what happened this weekend in Atlanta was this: the Mets had all their ducks in a row. You had Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You have Jacob deGrom, Max Scherzer out the gate. You had two big aces, arguably the best 1-2 punch in all baseball, and both guys lose the game. Both guys lose on Friday and Saturday. Bassett on Sunday, same thing, loses as well. So he gets swept in Atlanta. So clearly you don't deserve to win the division, Now, if this can parlay to a World Series championship, I'm all ears. I'm not predicting anything here. I don't think the Mets will win the World Series. I've been saying that. I think the Dodgers are far away the best team in the National League. And I think maybe Atlanta is the other team that probably is the viable team to go to the World Series again and possibly repeat. But, if it means that they win it all this year and with a great run in the playoffs, despite melting down against Atlanta this weekend, I'm all ears. I'll take it, obviously. So, but yeah, like I said, very disappointing end to the season for the Mets. Leading the division the entire season, only to literally give it up on the very last weekend. So sad. It's really sad. So, but again, we're in the playoffs. Time to reset. At least the Mets will be able to reset their pitching staff too, especially because I think they play the first game in the playoffs on Friday, which means DeGrom will be able to go game 1 and Max game 2. But of course, it's also not guaranteed that they can get the job done because, of course, what happened this weekend. I'm pessimistic, of course. So we'll see how that plays out for the Mets moving forward. Good luck to the team as they go to the playoffs. Some NBA talk here. Tyler Herro, the Miami Heat, secures the bag. He gets to the tune of 4 years, $103 million. The Miami Heat have secured that. I have no problem with this whatsoever, to be honest with you. I mean, when you look at the salary, when the Heat, and especially with the NBA, when it gets to the next next CBA or next salary cap adjustment, they expect a big lump sum of salary cap space for every team next year. Tyler Herro, to be honest with you, his number is probably where it should be at $32 million a year-ish. That's for a guy his caliber. Of course, he was $6 million a year last season for the Heat. The Heat went to the conference finals last year. He got hurt in the playoffs, obviously, but to me, I remember, obviously, this offseason, the Heat were trying to go after Kevin Durant. That didn't work out, obviously. And Donovan Mitchell as well, too. I was saying that I'd rather keep Tyler Herro than Donovan Mitchell because I think Donovan Mitchell, in my opinion, hasn't hit his ceiling. I think Tyler Herro is still young enough that he still has another tier to go. I think Tyler Herro's ceiling could be what Mitchell's at right now. But as a better shooter, obviously Herro's not a great defender, so we get all that. But I think this is a good deal for the Heat. I think it's also if the Heat wanted to trade him out of there at some point, it's a tradable contract too, especially. But I think it's a very talented kid, number one. Let's start there. And I think Herro, but I think what this signifies too for the Heat now going forward is this. This is the core going forward. You already got Bam locked in, Bam Adebayo locked in. Jimmy Butler is your leader, and now Tyler Herro is your third guy. It's clear now that the Heat are going to commit to these three guys. This is the core going forward. And for the Heat now, and I was saying on the Overrunners podcast that we recorded last week, I think the Heat will take a little bit of step back this year. Not because it's not good enough to win games, but because of the fact that the Eastern Conference has got much better around them. Now, everything predicates now on the Heat. If the Heat have, aspirations to win a championship this year, or at least get to the finals this year, it all falls on two guys. Not even Jimmy anymore. Jimmy is who he is. I don't think Jimmy Butler will get better than who he is now. It falls on whether or not Bam Adebayo and Tyler Herro can make another leap. If they make another leap, then yeah, he could be a top contender still. But now Brooklyn's back now with the big three of Durant and Kyrie and Simmons who's back now playing. Milwaukee's a problem. Boston, despite having a coach, Udoka, is still going to be a problem. So there's a lot of things now working against them. That's why I was saying last week on the podcast that even though I don't think it will happen, I think they'll still be a top 6 team in the Eastern Conference. If the Heat somehow get stuck playing the play-in this year in the East, that wouldn't shock me because of the environment of the Eastern Conference right now. So, again, we're looking at a situation where, okay, let's do this. Let's see if we can. This is the core. And obviously, a great coach, Eric Spoelstra, and we'll go from there. So, like I said, I like the deal. Obviously, this is the market going for a guy of his caliber. 6 man a year, average 20 points a game last year. Got to give him credit. And this is that. This is that. So, all right. Let's get on to some wrestling talk here. Chris Jericho. I love Chris Jericho. I really do. But some of the things he says sometimes off the record, well, on the record, but off TV, of course. Sometimes we should scratch your head. The guy can't stop talking about the WWE. He says he's over WWE, but he can't stop talking about WWE. It makes no sense, really. It really does. Here's a big quote he had with Inside the Ropes in talking about WWE and NXT and of course he's with AEW and whatnot and comparing about what they were doing when they first started the company and whatnot. Here's a quote here he had. He goes, quote, "Once again, it is just changing the narrative and changing the history, which really makes me laugh because when it started, NXT, it was not developmental. It was a third brand. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and all the other nonsense bullshit that they said. So we beat NXT in the ratings, but who gives a shit, right? Because it's developmental. It sucks. NXT sucks. It's not a good show, and they all know it. They probably were punished. Vince probably threw a fit and punished everyone there. That's probably why Triple H said those things. He's angry that we beat them, and he's probably is angry that we exist. We don't care about WWE or NXT. We care about building our fan base and building our ratings. We will continue to thrive and exist. Because I'll tell you this: my current boss has a lot more money than they do. Talking about Tony Khan, of course, at AEW. Okay, here's the thing. Here's the thing with Jericho. Some things said there at the top about Vince being pissed off probably about what happened, NXT not doing as well as AEW in the ratings when they were sharing the same time spot for the first 2 years. There's probably some truth to that. But you're the guy telling me that you don't care about WWE. Yet you can't keep them out of your fucking mouth. You talk about how, your boss is more than the other boss than they do. That's fine. You care about building a fan base and ratings. But this is the problem. I'm going to go back to this now as someone who watches both products, who watches both promotions. Your boss, that used to have more money than God, apparently, is not doing anything to build on that. AEW has already hit their ceiling as a company, in my opinion. Okay? This is why the ratings have maintained at max 1,000,003, lowest being 800,000 for Dynamite, for example. Okay? You're not expanding your audience. You're not marketing to kids, to families. You're marketing to a specific audience, 1839, the 1839 demo, which again, I get it. That's your core audience, but but the thing is, you're not maxing out your audience because this is why WWE will always be bigger than AEW. WWE markets to everybody. WWE markets to age 5 to age 80. Okay? Now, obviously, a lot of the hardcore fans of AEW doesn't like some of the product that WWE puts out because sometimes it caters a little bit to a kid's audience or it caters to a older audience and leaves them behind. But that's the nature of the beast when you're catering to a larger audience. And again, that AEW audience they have 839, it's good right now 3 years in. Well, that audience still exists 5 years later when people get bored and go do something else. Because wrestling is very cyclical in general anyway. Like, look at me. Even today, as I'm still watching it, as a guy who has a wrestling podcast, there are moments where I just don't want to watch anything because wrestling never stops. There's no off season. So sometimes I don't want to watch for a couple weeks. That's okay. And that audience, at some point, will get older. And then what? You did not market yourself to a younger audience to bring into the fold. The WWE has constantly done this for years, for decades. And this is why they've always maintained a sense of relevancy because my son, for example, who's 9 years old, watches WWE. He does not watch AEW at all. Mainly because I don't let them watch it because AEW is much more catered to adults. There's more cursing on there, more blood and all that stuff. I don't want to watch that stuff right now, 9 years old. So, while, yes, Chris Jericho, your boss, has more money, we agree with that. The reality is, he may have more money, but he's throwing his money because at some point, if you're not growing your audience, you're not really helping your business. Okay? And I'm really curious how this TV deal does with AEW and Warner next year. It's due to expire. I think there's an option for 2024, but it's due to expire in the next year or two. And there's a lot of talk about whether or not Warner wants to keep that AEW as on its roster of shows or properties on their umbrella. Just saying, you can brag about how much money Tony Khan has, but at the end of the day, it's about Warner. And if you're not on TV, if Warner says we're done with you, good luck finding somewhere else that's willing to pay that kind of money for a wrestling company. You know what I mean? Because WWE still is king shit still. And I say that as someone who likes AEW, someone who wants AEW to succeed. But at the same time, you make it hard to root for you guys when you keep saying dumb shit like this. Just saying. So, anyway, something else I want to get into real quick. I was watching social media yesterday. I saw a picture of Kanye West and Candace Owens. If you guys know what Candace Owens is a conservative firebrand commentator, or what to call it. Can't stand her necessarily. Not because it's conservative, for the record. I don't like her because I think she's disingenuous. I think she's just a very bitter person in general. You may not like you may agree with me. That's fine. But to me, she comes off resentful. So I guess this was Kanye's fashion show, whatever it may be, or something he was doing. Him and Candace Owens were wearing a White Lives Matter shirt together, locked up in arms and all that. And, I've said, and I said this on social media the other day, and I'll say it again here on this podcast, I've long made peace with Kanye West and about his life, what he wants to do with his life. I don't have a problem with him having his personal views about certain things, whether I agree or disagree with him. I don't have to agree with everything he does. That's fine. It's his life. In the day, if he wants to hail Satan, he can hail Satan all he wants. That's not something I would do, but that's on him. That's his life. But I always said this about people like Kanye West. He's a guy that is crying for attention. Lots of issues there. We've spoken on this, not just me, but many people have spoken about Kanye West's issues, mental health, and all that. And to me, when I see this picture, like, I don't get mad. I don't smile. I don't get mad because at the end of the day, I'm not wasting my energy into that. Now, yes, I spoke on it a little bit today on social media, and I'm talking on the podcast now because it's content, and I get that. But the reason why I'm talking here is that my ire right now is not going to Kanye West at all. My ire is going to the media, and not just the media that supports Kanye West. It's all the media that actually also is not supporting the people who are against Kanye's actions, like Jamel Hills and Mark Lamont Hill and a bunch of people like that who have an issue with Kanye West doing what he's doing. And for the record, I agree with them and their position on that, what they're doing. What he's doing is at best, at worst, evil, or sad, at best sad. But the reason I'm frustrated at Jamel Hills and of the world and all that, it's not because I don't agree with you, because I do agree with you 100%. Is that you're doing the thing that he's seeking. You're giving him energy. You're giving him attention. You're playing yourselves, guys. Stop giving the attention. Stop giving me attention. And here's the thing, too, also with Kanye. If he's trying to make a statement, I guess my question to Kanye West is this. If I had a chance to have an audience with Kanye West and talk to him real quick, I ask him, look, I whether or not I agree or disagree with your politics and all that stuff, that's up to you. That's your life. My question to you is this. What's your intention? What is your intention? Because everything we decide on as human beings, we do it with a intent for something. Like there's an end game. There's a point. There's a reason for the things we do, things we say. And so I'm asked. So I want to know from Kanye West truly and authentically, what exactly is Kanye West trying to do? Like, what is his intention here? Is he trying to troll? Does he really feel the white lives matter? Of course, white lives matter. We know that all lives matter, of course. But I don't have to get into the whole Black Lives Matter thing. And so we know you're smart. People listen to this podcast. You're smart enough to know what's going on. Okay, so I'm not going to get into the mumbo jumbo particulars about all that. Okay, what is his intention? That's my problem. That's my question for him. To me, when I see Kanye West do these things like this, it's a cry for help. Honestly, it's got to be. Well, maybe not. Maybe he really has his own feelings, and again, it's his right. But it's just my ire is towards the people who are getting big mad about this stuff when you know this is what he does. You know, don't give him attention. Don't give him attention at all. That's what he wants. That's my only problem with the media and the folks that even the ones that did not agree with him. One more thing before I get out of here. And something I'm going to say to you, some people, maybe people who live locally here in South Florida, and I'm sure there's other stores like Publix stores outside the state of Florida. I think there's a couple in the Carolinas, of course, and maybe some in Georgia as well, too. But this past Sunday, I decided to pick up wings from Publix for football. I always like to have wings for football on Sundays. Normally I get wings from Target, or I get stuff or box wings and frozen wings. I put in my air fryer because I love my air fryer wings. They're the best. Buffalo wings especially too. But they were out of those on Sunday, and I needed to get my wings now. So I decided to go to Publix with my kids and pick up the ready-made wings prepared in the heater, what do you call it, in their bakery section, where all the wings and chickens and stuff is located. And I hadn't had Publix wings in a long time, actually. I hadn't had Publix wings probably about a year, actually, maybe longer. And I got to tell you, and it pains me to say this, actually, but I'm going to say it anyway. Publix wings are grossly overrated. Now, I'm not saying they're not good. I'm just saying they're overrated. Like, they're not as good as you think they are. Like, to me, Publix wings, and through the years I've discovered this, they're hit or miss. And the thing that really got to me was that when I got the wings, it was like 11 o'clock in the morning, so they're still pretty fresh. And yet I get my wings and I eat them within the first 30 minutes of having the wings at home, and they're dry and this and that. And again, these are wings that are made literally within the hour. So why are they so dry already? I don't know. And it seems like every time I get wings from Publix that are fresh, I make sure I get them during the day, early in the day, not at nighttime when it's like sitting in the thing for hours on end. That they're always still very dry. I don't get it. I really don't get it. So I come to the conclusion that I would rather stick to my air fryer wings frozen that I get every time at Target or maybe put them in air fryer, fresh and ready to go, than in Publix. And cheaper too, because the Publix wings are like $16 now. With inflation now, $16. Never again doing that. Never again doing that again. Like I said, I'm not saying they're bad, but they're hit or miss. Very disappointing. Very disappointing. Anyway, like I said on the podcast last time, I'll say it again in the last solo pod. We are working on merchandising, coming soon. Merchandising. I'm hoping to have merchandise ready to go around the holidays for the podcast. I'm not promising anything, of course, but I'm hoping to have merchandise for shirts and mugs and all that and cups maybe for the podcast in the very near future. Hopefully for the holidays. My wife and I are working on some ideas and stuff. Like I said, probably one of them will probably be at the new branding logo you see on the on this podcast feed right now, especially. Also, too, like I said, I do this every Tuesday night. I just finished it today. I actually just finished doing the podcast with them. But normally, this episode I'm doing here was only done on Tuesday mornings instead of working this Tuesday nights. But check me out every Tuesday night on the Huddle Up podcast with our good friend Big Jim James Neese, of course, and myself, Big Jim, hosted by him, of course. Kyle Nass doing the game. Matt Meelizen, who's been on the podcast a few times now, as we talk football every week, every Tuesday, live at 8 o'clock on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, you name it. But also on demand, also do the podcast as well, too, or the YouTube page as well, Huddle Up on YouTube as well, too. So, other than that, I think that's it for now. Next podcast will probably drop on Thursday. Thursday afternoon, so look out for that. We'll have the picks of the week and all that good stuff. And like I said, you'll a little bit of changes come to the podcast a little bit. We'll see how that works out. Most likely, we won't be doing Football's Awesome anymore as a full episode. We'll probably take those segments and blend them into regular episodes within my show, of course. But of course, I'm on Twitter at EJChristian7. Earnestly Podcast, of course, all podcast catchers, especially on YouTube. Please subscribe to Earnestly Speaking on YouTube as well too. Talk to you guys later. Love you guys. Take care and see ya.